What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Week 1 of the NFL season is officially here. In just a few days, we are going to have our first game of the NFL season, but that doesn't mean that while we're waiting, you can't still be active on your waiver wire in your league. So I'm going to give you guys today a list of players I would be stashing if I had some extra bench space on my rosters, just to make sure I can get ahead of the waiver wire as we head into week 2, because playing that waiver wire game is going to be the difference between those wins and losses over the course of the season, and could be the difference between finding the next Kyron Williams, the next Puka Nacua, the next Bucky Irving. So today I'm going to give you a list of players you should be stashing if you have that bench space. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these stashes. All right, so as you can see, I got a list of priority stashes here on the screen for you guys. We're going to go through these guys very quickly because all of these players are above 50% rostership in fantasy football leagues, so they are likely not going to be available in your leagues. But if for whatever reason these players are available in your fantasy football leagues, these should be the priority pickups before the guys that I talk about in today's video. But that's going to be Tank Bigsby, Jaden Blue, Ollie Gordon, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen for some of the running backs, Luther Burden, Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, Adam Thielen, and Rashad Bateman. Now, you'll notice in this video, there's a lot of running back stashes. That's what I like to do. I think when you're looking at the positions as a whole, easier to find wide receiver talent to plug in each and every week as a flex play or maybe just as a streaming option. But those running backs, because there's so many injuries to the running back position, because of the durability concerns of some of the running backs, that's where you're going to find the league winners. So that's why we're stashing a lot of these guys, and you'll notice that's kind of a theme throughout the rest of this year. But moving on over to my first stash, I am going to be talking about Woody Marks for the Houston Texans. Now, he's currently rostered in about 21% of leagues. The main reason why we're going to be picking up and stashing Woody Marks is because obviously Joe Mixon is not going to be starting the year on the active roster for the Houston Texans. Nick Chubb likely is going to get the first run. We know that Nick Chubb necessarily hasn't had the most healthy career over the last couple of seasons. I mean, when you look back at the production for Nick Chubb, you have to kind of go back to 2022, 2023 when you have those real big games from Nick Chubb. So he doesn't necessarily seem like a player to me that I'm going to be putting a ton of confidence in, having a resurgence season here with the Houston Texans. The offensive line is bad. I do expect this to be a team where you are likely going to be seeing some more, third down plays where they're going to have the running back out there running routes, catching passes. And I think Woody Marks is going to be the guy on the receiving end of that. So if you're looking for somebody who's, not really rostered in a lot of leagues, has some juice or more juice than I think Nick Chubb currently has, and needs some PPR pass catching upside, I think Woody Marks is definitely the guy to target in that backfield. Now, moving on over to that second stash, I am going to talk about Chris Rodriguez. This is kind of a similar type of idea to Woody Marks. However, obviously with the Brian Robinson Jr. trade, where Brian Robinson was traded from the Washington Commanders to the San Francisco 49ers, we do have an open in this depth chart. Now, I do expect it to be Austin Eckler, and I do think Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, a player who is a rookie in this year's NFL draft class, who is coming in and, seeing his first NFL touches, I do think those guys are first up on the depth chart. However, we did get a little bit of positive coach speak from Dan Quinn talking about Chris Rodriguez, saying he might be able to contribute here on special teams, maybe even in some early down situations and things like that. There's a chance that he could be the goal line work if they do decide to go with him. It is primarily going to be Eckler and JCM, in my opinion, but it's worth stashing Chris Rodriguez in week 1 just to see what happens. Sometimes we get surprised by usage. Sometimes we get surprised by depth charts overall in the first week of the NFL season. So at 12% rostership for Chris Rodriguez, even though I'm not projecting him to be the long-term answer for the Commanders, I do think we should be picking up and stashing him just in case, because if he does go out there and get a touchdown and gets 10 carries or something like that, we will be prioritizing him on waiver wires in week 2. So just get ahead of it right now and pick up Chris Rodriguez if you have some extra bench space. Moving on to the third guy on the list, it's going to be Dont'e Thornton, rookie wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, he is only rostered in about 32% of leagues right now, so he is widely available. When you look at this team for the Las Vegas Raiders and you look at how their wide receiver room has shaken out over the summer, Thornton has really established himself as an outside starter in this offense. Now, Pete Carroll has really liked what he's seen out of Dont'e Thornton, talked very highly of him. There's even been some comparisons to what Pete Carroll saw out of DK Metcalf during his time in Seattle and what he's seeing out of Dont'e Thornton right now. So if you're looking for somebody in this offense who has had a good preseason, has had some coach speak, has the ability to be a day 1 starter, because Jacoby Myers and Jack Beck mesh, are kind of eating each other's role. You have Amari Cooper, who just got signed, could play on the outside. Brock Bowers obviously established, but they need a true X, and that does seem to be Dante Thornton. So he's a player I would pick up, see what happens week 1. They get the New England Patriots, and there's even a chance here that Christian Gonzalez isn't going to be healthy, so the number 1 corner here in this offense might not even be there in this New England game. So definitely pick up Dante Thornton, see what he does for you week 1. Moving on to stash number 4, that's going to be Brenton Strange. He's a player that I talked about in the preseason. I liked him as a late round dart throw in those drafts where you could potentially get a guy in a good offense that is going to be ascending here with Liam Cohen as a play caller, and a guy who could potentially have a little bit of a breakout here in 2025. Right now, currently rostered in only 29% of leagues. He did show us flashes last year at some points. He gets a week 1 matchup against Carolina. We aren't projecting Carolina to be a great defense. I think this is a player where if you punted the tight end position, if you're looking for tight end production, maybe you waited too long in your draft and you're just looking for some upside, pick up Brenton Strange. Let's see what happens in week 1. And there's a chance that he does have a really established role in this offense alongside guys like Bryant Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Let's go on to the next guy. The next guy is going to be Elic, Ayomanor for the Tennessee Titans. Now, he had a very solid preseason as well. We've got a lot of reports about him building some rapport with Cam Ward, and we know that this offense is lacking pass catching options, or at least established pass catching options outside of Calvin Ridley. So Ayomanor is a rookie, came in, rookie minicamp. Like I said, building some rapport with Cam Ward. If you're looking to take a shot in this offense, I think Ayomanor is a guy that you definitely could take a shot on. He can play outside. He can play inside a little bit, but I think he's primarily that outside wide receiver where we might see Calvin Ridley command a little bit of that slot work. I think overall, this is a high upside swing. You don't love the guy, seeing a week 1 matchup against the Denver Broncos. Their defense is pretty good. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a guy who can potentially just see some production right out the gates and had a decent prospect profile, Ayomanor is a guy that you could take a shot on, but he's probably a little bit more of a deeper league type of shot. As you can see, currently being rostered in 17% of leagues, but there is a pathway to early season, even week 1 opportunities for Elic Ayomanor. Let's go on to the number 6 guy in this. It's going to be Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle to me is a player that I am definitely stashing, 1, if I have Chuba Hubbard, and 2, if I don't. I think he's a potential player who could just have handcuff opportunities and might have an established role in this offense anyways. Currently being rostered in about 25% of leagues. Obviously last year with the Dallas Cowboys had the opportunity to be the starting running back and did pretty well, given the circumstances of what he was dealing with without Dak Prescott in that lineup and some of the other things that were happening there in Dallas. But he goes to the Carolina Panthers. Dave Canales, we have seen him use multiple running backs in his system before. I think Dowdle is kind of a change of pace guy only at this point in time, but I think he has the talent to kind of turn this into a committee with Chuba Hubbard. I've faded Chuba Hubbard just a tiny bit in drafts this year. Not a full fade, but a minor fade based on the fact that I do think Dowdle is going to be more involved than people think. I would be stashing him. If anything ever happens to Chuba Hubbard, he's going to be a guy who's going to get the full workload here because there is really nobody else, maybe outside of Trevor Etienne, that's Travis Etienne's little brother, that could come in and take some touches, but he's a player that I think still needs some development at the NFL level before he gets a full workload. So Rico Dowdle, to me, a nice handcuff option to pick up and stash, and a player I think can have some extra opportunities just given the talent that he has behind Chuba Hubbard in this offense here in Carolina. And now my last and final stash, let's talk about Isaac TeSlaa of the Detroit Lions. This is a player who had a very good rookie preseason. He had a lot of opportunities. He was traded up for and drafted highly by this regime in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. That's a day 2 pick by the Lions, and nobody really expected TeSlaa to go that high. However, his prospect profile is very good. He had very good success rates in college when he was playing at Arkansas, and like I said, he came into preseason, caught some touchdowns, had some good opportunities, and we've gotten a lot of good buzz from TeSlaa. Now, this is a player kind of like Elic Ayomanor, where he is rostered in more leagues. He's had a little bit more hype in the preseason, and that's why he's rostered in about 28%, but he's a player that's going to be a slow burn in my opinion. You pick him up if you want some wide receiver help. There's a chance that he does have some opportunities day 1, but you're still looking at an offense here that has Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the loss of Ben Johnson. I think we don't have to pick up TeSlaa, but I'd rather be early than late, and if you have to drop him going into week 2 because you want to pick somebody else, that's fine. If he goes out and has, a decent week 1 one where he catches a touchdown or he gets a couple of receptions and he looks maybe just as good as Jameson Williams, or maybe he out-targets Jameson Williams. It's something I'm not necessarily projecting to happen, but if it happens, I could see the community reacting pretty aggressively to TeSlaa. So beat the waiver wire, get ahead of it. Maybe if he does go out and has a good week one, you have a good trade piece or you have a good player on the back end of your bench. But he's a player that has just enough training camp buzz and just enough preseason buzz in a good offense that I'm willing to take a shot if I have some extra roster space. So there you guys have it. There's some players that I'm going to be stashing as we get into week one of the NFL season. Like I said, you guys can beat the waiver wire by adding these players now. That way, if something happens over the weekend, you don't have to fight on waivers in week two to pick up some of these players. Hopefully we get a little bit lucky, but overall, that's what we're going to be doing each and every week throughout the season. Make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. That way you don't miss any future content. Make sure if you found something today informative, entertaining, and or actionable, you do hit that like button for me. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. And make sure to go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with your fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. But with all of that out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I'll see you on our next episode. But until then, peace out.